I'm letting my little YouTube live magic kick in. I believe we are live. Thank you so much for being here. If you're here live, go ahead and pop into the comments that you're here. At the end of this live, we always do a drawing for a free spot in one of our upcoming workshops or any of our Airtable templates. So if you are an online coach and you want to learn how to set up your Airtable systems in one sitting, our Airtable template shop is the perfect place to go. So be sure to say that you're here in the chat. What we are covering today, I'm really excited. And of course, if you're here live, and if you're watching the replay, feel free to leave any comments. I'm here for you. I'm here to support you. This YouTube live is called Don't Try to Set Up Airtable as an Online Coach Before Watching This. 3 rookie mistakes Airtable coaches make coaches make when they're using Airtable and how to avoid them. I see so many people trying to use Airtable now. So if you don't know me, my name is Ashley. I have been using Airtable. I've been the online coaching industry's Airtable girl for the last 4 years. I know a lot about Airtable and how it works for coaches. It is absolutely a requirement in an online coach's tech stack. I don't care if you have Kajabi or Kartra and they say that they're an all-in-one platform. They simply are not. You need Airtable as a database to house a lot of your client data. And if you've never used Airtable before, this is a really great video, but we also have a free training called Why You Need to Use Airtable to Manage Your Coaching Clients, whether you have 1 or 1,000 coaching clients. So go ahead and check that out. The link will be in the description for that. But really, when I first started teaching Airtable, people are like, what is that? I do not know what that is. This is foreign to me. All I know are spreadsheets. And now I'm getting a lot of people that know what Airtable is, have seen other people use it, and are trying to use it themselves and are just making some rookie mistakes. So I'm hoping that this eliminates some learning curve for you and just gives you some overall best practices and what to do and how to use Airtable as an online coach. So let's dive into it. So if you don't know what Airtable is a database software. So what that means is basically anything that you're using spreadsheets for currently, it's a better fit in Airtable. There's a lot of moving pieces with a group program. And when you have Airtable or when you have a spreadsheet or when you have Google Forms, all of this really important data about your students, their onboarding forms, their payments, any client results tracking, they're all just living in silos inside of spreadsheets. And what Airtable does is it brings it all together and creates these centralized client profiles, which are really cool. So again, I want to show what the mistakes are that people make. So if you haven't used Airtable before, you might not totally know all these things, but if you have used Airtable before, you can go ahead and pull up your Airtable base and see if you're making any of these mistakes, and so you know how to fix it. So the first mistake that I see people make, especially when they're moving to Airtable for this first time, is what I call spreadsheet mentality. So they're so used to using spreadsheets that they're basically treating Airtable like a glorified spreadsheet and not like the powerful, robust database that it is. So I'm actually going to share my screen and show you some very rookie mistakes that I see and how you can clean it up in your own bases. So let me hit share. Fantastic. Okay, cool. I hope you can see that. So what I want to show you, the biggest thing is when you look at Airtable like this, it's going to look like your spreadsheets. And typically, if you have, let's say you have a group offer or a mastermind. Now, what I often see when people have spreadsheets, because this makes sense when you have a spreadsheet, is you have a different spreadsheet for each cohort. Or you have different cohorts and you have different tabs inside of your spreadsheet. With Airtable, you do not want to do that. So the first rookie mistake that I see people make is that they make a lot more tables than they need to, when instead they should have one table that is filtered with views instead. So let me show you what that means. So every group, every offer that you have should have its own Airtable base. So you'll see this is an Airtable base for a test group offer. You can use this for a membership, a mastermind, one-on-one clients, whatever you have. Template shop, each offer should have one Airtable base. And then everything about that offer lives here. So you'll see we have this primary student record. So all of your clients, regardless of what cohort they're in, they would all be in this primary student record. And you'll see things like, let me hide some of this, like their onboarding form. If you show this onboarding form field, then you click this open and their onboarding form is connected to their client record. So their onboarding form is connected, which is really cool. So is like the questions that they've submitted throughout the time in the program. So you're starting to build out this really cool client profile of everything that's inside of the client. So what's nice about this is you set this up one time, you set up this table one time, but if you're in spreadsheet mentality, what people typically do is they'll say like cohort 1, and then they'll have cohort 2. I see this all the time. And if your tables look like this, it's time to clean that up, because you're just putting all of those, there's all these different tables at the top, and you're not being able to, like, you'd have to like relink things. It just becomes really annoying. So what you want to do is have one table. But if you're like, Ashley, I don't want to see, like, I only want to see cohort 1 students, how would I see that? Airtable has things that spreadsheets don't have, which is called like filtered views. So all on this left side are all of these different views that you could have. So let me make a field real quick. I'm going to call it cohort. And let's say cohort 1, cohort 2, right? And so let's say that these people were in cohort 1. These people were in cohort 2. And let's say we actually got this person, test person 9, they were in cohort 1 and 2. So they're in both of them. So everybody is in one central spot, right? So you can zoom out on the data and you can see who are all of my clients. But then you can also zoom down using filtered views. So we're going to say, go to grid view, and we're going to say cohort 1. And you can create a filtered view where the cohort has any of cohort 1. So now here's our 5 students in cohort 1. And let's create another view called cohort 2. And we're going to filter where the status or the cohort is any of cohort 2. So that way we're talking the same, we've got the same table, but we are able to splice up the data that we need to see. So we can say, like, if we want to see active versus graduated, or like we can really play with that. Let's also say, we can say grouped by cohort. We can say grouped by cohort. We can see, okay, 4 people were just in cohort 1. This person was in cohort 1 and 2, and this person was in cohort 3. There's maybe better ways to like visualize and view that. But for now, I just wanted you to see that this is so important. So often people start to just like base it by cohort or do all these different tables. They'll do it for cohorts. They'll do it for graduated students. They just like have way too many tables, when really you want to have all of your data in one place and then filtered down using views. So that's the first rookie mistake that I see. And then, so that's that. If you have any questions in the chat, feel free to let me know. That's the first one. Let me pull up my next one. And the next rookie mistake that I see is just simply having too many bases. So when you first are creating an Airtable, it's very similar. Like I said, it's really, a lot of my work is convincing people to get out of spreadsheets and get out of Google Forms. And they try, like, they'll just be like, okay, I have a new feature I want to add to my group program. So let me create a whole new base, and I'm just going to have my onboarding form in that base, or I'm just going to have my group calls in one separate base. And you really don't want to do that. What you want to do is have literally every single piece of that offer managed in one central base. So if you have an onboarding form, create that table inside of your base. If you have group calls, organize those inside of the base. You should have very, very, very few Airtable bases. The amount of bases you should have is 1 per offer. I get this question sometimes of like, why would I have, why can I have all of my offers managed in one central place? And the reason why we separate that is because a lot of the times your offers are going to have different onboarding form questions, and you're going to have different features in each of your different offers. So we have 1 offer hub we have 1 base per offer. And then if you want to like manage your content, I recommend having a content base, but like manage your YouTube and your podcast and your email all in a content base. So really keeping as little bases as possible, because you can make bases talk to each other, but it's a little more technical and annoying. And so it's much easier to manage everything about your program, everything about your offer in one central base. So that's another rookie mistake that I see, is just having not enough inside of the base. And kind of going off of that, another mistake that I see people make, so mistake number 3, is that people do not understand that Airtable can do it all. It can do a lot of things. So what I hate to hear is, well, yeah, I manage my clients in Airtable for sure. Like, I manage my clients in Airtable. Oh, but their onboarding form, yeah, that's still in Google Forms. Like, it's just easier for me to have it in Google Forms. No. If you are really using Airtable effectively, you are not using Google Forms. So every form, and we're going to actually have another YouTube live all about how to use forms in Airtable, but Airtable is literally has a form builder built into it. So you can build your forms right inside of your hub. So a huge rookie mistake that I see is like people trying to use Airtable and spreadsheets, Airtable and Google Forms. We just want you to really centralize and commit to using this. So that's a huge rookie mistake that I see, is just folks are simply like barely using it, but they're not using it as like effectively or holistically as they could. And then another mistake that I see is, I'm just going to kind of, I don't like, there was 3, but there's just a lot. I'm just telling you all of the ones that I've got. So I started with the primary student record, right? A lot of y'all, when you first get started using Airtable, you actually don't even have a primary student record. You just have these kind of random ass like onboarding form over here, group calls over here. Like, you're managing these different pieces of data, and you're not using or linking all of those pieces of data to a primary student record. So I wanted to walk through like how and why the linking of the records is so powerful. That's what actually like makes Airtable magical, because you might just have an onboarding form, and you might just have like group calls. Like, a lot of you have been using Airtable as forms, which is great. Like, we're getting out of Google Forms, we're using Airtable for its form capabilities, so we can see all the data back here, which is fantastic. But we're missing a huge opportunity, which is connecting it to a primary student record. So if you don't have a record, a table that is like kind of has all of your students, you definitely need to create that. That's a huge rookie mistake that I see, because like I mentioned, we want one central record where all of your students live, so then you can link them appropriately. So I'll show you what this looks like. We've got the client's first name, last name, email, their start date, their days in the program, their end date, and then all of these little like gray boxes, all of these are called linked records. So we're linking that client's engagement and like what they're doing to their student record. So that way you get to create this really cool, robust profile. So like I said, we've got their application form, we've got their onboarding form, and we've got their questions submitted. These are all literally just linking to other places in the Airtable database. So you have this really robust data set and data system. Now, you can link them, which is great, but it's like the beauty of what you can do once things are linked. So you can see this number of questions submitted. We have the questions here. You can have a count field that's going to count how many questions that person has submitted over time in the program. So like this person, you will literally see this person has 1 question, and this is counting 1. This is really helpful for if there's like if they have a bunch. Like, we're starting to see like automatically when folks are submitting their questions, it's going to link to their primary student record, and you just have this up-to-date, accurate count of what's going on with them in the program. So not only can you see like the number of questions that they've submitted, you can use what's called a roll-up field to see the last date that they've submitted a question, or you can use a lookup field as well. So this is saying that the last time test person 5 has submitted a question was March 13th, 2024. That's really helpful to know. That would be a lot of digging if you had to use a Google Sheet, right? So what can you do with this information? Other than it just being nice to know, you can actually set up automations right inside of Airtable. And you can say, when a record matches a condition, when the last question submitted is number of days ago is 30 days ago, send them an email and say, hey, it's been a while. Like you can literally send it. Airtable will do this automatically. So when everything's connected, you can do these really cool automations. So you can say, hey, Ashley, it's been 30 days since you submitted a question. Just like want to make sure that you know that we're here for you, we're rooting for you, and use this feature of my program. So those are the types of things you can do when you have a primary student record that's everything is connected. So that's a rookie mistake that I see too, is just folks like are keeping the data, like the data's in here. Maybe you've got your primary student record. There's these layers, right? There's always more you can do with Airtable. So you've got the primary student record, you've got the questions getting linked, but then what are you actually doing with the data? You can see interesting thing. You can see the average number of questions people submit, but then you can also do cool automations and say the last time somebody submitted a question, if it's been 30 days, send them an email. So those are really interesting, cool things you can do. No other software can do this. Airtable is the only place. It is the best place to keep all of this here. Okay, I'm gonna look at some of the comments now. So great to see you. Sarah said, I seriously need to learn forms. Yes, forms. We're gonna do a live all about forms soon. I cannot wait. So I was going to do all of this in Notion. I think it makes more sense to consolidate information coming in via forms in Airtable. Absolutely, Sarah. It does make more sense to do all of this inside of Airtable. One of the biggest things that Notion doesn't do, which for me is a complete deal breaker, is it has some automations. They are whack. They're so limited, but they don't have this Gmail integration. So you can't say when something was submitted 30 days ago, send them an email, or when they've sent in $100,000 of email wins, like send them an email celebrating them. This is good. Like this simple automation alone transforms your group program. So Notion could never. Get it out of here. Yes, some people are saying, yeah, they use Notion and it's a crazy mess. Totally. Someone else says, I currently use Dubsado, but it doesn't help me manage my offers like this. So BizTech Ninja, also incredible name. So Dubsado and Airtable can work together, but you still need Airtable if you use Dubsado. For me, Dubsado is only good for sending invoices and contracts, but keeping it as like a centralized database. Have fun like trying to zoom out and see client trends inside of Dubsado. You really can't. It keeps it so siloed. So Airtable is a really great place to have like the centralized, like once a person buys your offer, add them to your offer hub and manage all of it inside of here. Especially with Dubsado forms, those are so, you can't export that data into anything. So if you wanted to see the trends of your onboarding form, you can't see that inside of Dubsado, but you can very easily see that inside of Airtable because like all of the data is here. So you could see, okay, what's the average rating of all of my clients when they get into the program? Like you can see that very easily inside of Airtable within seconds. You'd have to do a lot of digging to find that inside of Airtable. Someone else asks, could you create a client base and a list of products to create invoices for an e-commerce system? Yeah, it really just depends on what the other tech is that you're using. I know that you're using Dubsado too. So sometimes you can have a button that says like send invoice to client from Airtable, and it will like trigger a workflow in Dubsado and like create things. So you can use what's called Zapier. It's a integration like automation software that can really integrate Airtable with a lot of different things. Beautiful. Yes, and someone said, that's awesome. It's rad to be able to handle the automations in Airtable instead of having to opt into all the infinite upgrades for automation integrations on my various platforms. Absolutely. That is like one of the other rookie mistakes that I see people do is like, they're like, yeah, I use Airtable. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like what automations are you doing? And they're like, what automations? What are you talking about? I still do things manually. Like there's so much automation opportunities inside of Airtable that you can really, really play with. So like I said, when there's a certain condition that happens, you can send them an email, or you can also send Slack emails to your team. So if there's a new feedback review to review, you can send a Slack message. Almost everything that I'm showing you, actually everything that I've showed you is on the free plan of Airtable. Airtable's pricing plans really increase from based on like your record size. So if you're like 1,200 records above, then you have to upgrade. There's some stuff with calendars. Calendars is a big one that like are really limited on the free plan, but a lot of this just like standard client management, absolutely available to you on the free plan of Airtable. Someone else asked, can you use Airtable be used instead of Dubsado? So Airtable can be used. Airtable can replace Dubsado forms. And it's going to replace kind of like the, so it can replace the, like, what's it called? Application form, like the management of the applications, like from lead to like when they apply, and if you want to like automate them getting on your call scheduler. Airtable doesn't have a call scheduler. Airtable doesn't have a contract software inside of it, and it doesn't take payments. So Dubsado will be used with Airtable. So Dubsado takes the payments and signs the contracts, but that's pretty much it. So it's really using Dubsado for what it's good for, and then really using Airtable for everything else. Any other questions here? I'm happy to answer questions. We've got the time. I'll also just share some other things that I see people really just like room for opportunities. So one of the other big things that I see is this is especially if you are using Airtable a lot, what I want you to make sure that you have is your primary field here. So this primary field, it's the first Airtable field that's always going to be on the left-hand side. And because you're going to be using linked records a lot, you really want to make sure that this field is named appropriately. So like a lot of the times people will have a table and they'll just make this first field whatever they want it to be. So like this first field matters. So if you just had this as like, let's say it was a number field and this one said 123 and this one said 456, because they're tracking their, let's say you have a form where they're tracking how much money they make and you're like having them submit the field and you assign this field to like what they would fill out. If you, whatever is in this first primary field is what's going to show up when you're linking across to people. So if I linked this, let's call this income tracking. If this was your income tracking, and you had, let's do this here. This will make sense in a second. Trust the process. Table 46. Okay, so this is income tracking. See how this just says 1, 2, 3? This isn't that helpful to see. Like whatever is in that first field is what's going to be visible in your other tables when you do a primary record field. However, let's say instead of having this 1, 2, 3, what I actually want to do is say income tracked in this currency field. So we actually have them fill that out there. And then let's say we say month you're reporting on. This is just a quick example. So single, so I'm going to say 09, 27, 24, 10, 24. So when a client fills out this form, they fill out the income tract and the month that they're reporting on. Now, instead of having that data like in the primary field, what I always recommend is your primary field is going to be a formula field. And what this is doing is we're saying the month you're reporting on, and income tract. So now, instead of it just saying randomly like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in other tables that it's linked to, you actually have like a little more data to look at. So you can see like, okay, I know on September she made 123, in October she made 456. So that's a really slight, that's more like a pro tip, but that's like a huge rookie mistake. If someone's like really into Airtable and they don't have a primary field as a formula field, I'm like, oh, you're not an Airtable user yet. When you when you start to understand that every first field, the primary field, should be a formula that kind of summarizes the data, that's really helpful. So that's what I would recommend there as well. Yes. Okay. Awesome. So someone says in the chat, my clients use Airtable a lot for managing virtual summit speaker applications and bios. There are so many ways to use Airtable, and that's another one of the like rookie mistakes that I see too is like, you just use Airtable for like one thing. What I really want to encourage you, and in my world, I use Airtable for everything. So I don't use Notion. I don't use spreadsheets. I don't use Google Forms. I do use ClickUp for project management because an OBM made me do it, but we're moving actually out of ClickUp and into Airtable for project management because it can do that too. So what I really want to encourage you to do is like, if you start to use Airtable and you start to like it, think of all of the other ways that this thing can grow with you and you can use it. So any data, really all of us as business owners, we have so much data. We have so many moving pieces of our business in our lives. So we've got, let's say, virtual speaker summit applications. That's great. So a speaker summit application in bios is very similar to kind of like managing a group program, right? You might have an application process, you have the statuses, you have like a gallery of all of your students and the bios there. So you can really use Airtable. It's really robust, and you can really customize it to like any workflow that you have in your business. So you can use it for hiring. So if you're like hiring for a new position, you can create an Airtable base and you create a form, and then all of the forms are housed inside of Airtable. You can manage the applications inside of Airtable. It's just like anytime that you want to default, I always like to tell my clients, like, have me on your shoulder anytime you're trying to create a spreadsheet or a Google form and be like, could this be done in Airtable instead? And I would encourage you, especially if you're handling big data sets in Notion, like, hey, could this be done in Airtable? Is there like, would this be better off in Airtable? The answer almost always is yes. And one of the reasons why it's yes is because you can have all the data in one spot, but then you can also really leverage these automations. You can leverage interfaces, which I cover in another video. All these different ways that you can use Airtable to manage your coaching business. And you just have one central place to train your team, which that's really important for me. I want my team to like learn and master this one tool instead of having like this shiny tool that just does, I don't know, Summit speaker application tracking or something like that. We don't like those tools. What I love about Airtable as well is it's a relatively affordable. If you're on the Teams plan, I think it's like $20 to $24 a month. And you can handle all of this in one tool. So it's one of the most like high ROI tools and softwares that you could have in your business if you really commit to using it for everything it could possibly be used for. So those are our rookie mistakes. So the first one was treating Airtable like a spreadsheet. The other one is not using Airtable as effectively as it could when it comes to your automations. And the third was just these little tweaks, primary client records, all of those things, or primary fields and all of that. If you have any questions, I'll stick around in the chat for a couple minutes before we do our drawing. So everybody who's here, make sure you like put your name in the chat. And what we do is we pick somebody randomly and you get access to anything in our template shop. So let me show you what's there for now. There will be more soon, but we have live workshops and we have live workshop replays and one-off templates. So like I said, there's so many things you can do and manage inside of Airtable. We have a template all about creating your content management hub in Airtable, how to collect your client results and track your testimonials, setting up an automated sales hub system. So if you have Dubsado and Thrivecart and Kartra, all of those sales data comes into one central spot in Airtable so you can visualize everything. And then also creating a call hub in Airtable, which what that is like every single call that you have is managed right inside of Airtable. So you can handle call follow-ups right from Airtable without having to go into Gmail. As somebody with ADHD, it's really hard for me to send follow-up call notes. And our call hub in Airtable makes it possible for me to do those things. So lots of different ways you can use Airtable in your coaching business. It is so cool to use. And I feel like I'm still just scratching the surface. And if I am, so are you for sure. So that is what we've got here. I'm going to close my eyes and do a drawing. And what you'll do if you win, you're going to email or you're going to send me a DM on Instagram at Systems Over Stress. And we will get you all set with a promo code for that. So let me go. Okay, Sarah Miller. You're the one. Congrats. So go ahead and I'm at Systems Over Stress on IG. So go ahead and DM me and we'll get you set up with the code. And yes, I'm old school, Excel and Access, time to figure out Airtable. Yes, 100% time to figure out Airtable. And something else I really, really believe, and this is not to scare you, the industry, the coaching industry is really changing, and Airtable is becoming the industry standard because of me. Sorry, not sorry. But there's so much it can do, and really you can start to feel and see the difference when group programs are using Airtable. So there's so much you can do. For example, if somebody hasn't filled out their onboarding form in a week, then you can automate those emails. So those little touch points that make your clients feel really seen and taken care of, because a lot of kind of the gripes in the industry right now is like, I'm just a number in a sea of a growing mastermind that was supposed to be high touch, but I barely feel seen. Airtable eliminates a lot of that stuff. So that's really, really cool to have. And you're gonna, like, people feel the difference when you use my Airtable systems for your coaching clients. They feel taken care of, they feel seen, you're able to make better data-driven decisions. It's really, really impactful. And I cannot stress enough how much every single online coach needs Airtable and needs these Airtable solutions. Someone said, yes, best thing I've watched on Airtable. Thank you. I'm so, so glad. I've been besties with Excel for over 30 years. Time for a change. If you are besties with Excel and if you love your spreadsheets, I promise you, you are going to love Airtable, because you have that data mindset, right? But it just, like, there's so much you can do. There's so much more you can do with Airtable. And I think a lot of those things that you kind of have to hack inside of spreadsheets in Excel are just available for you in Airtable. They're just there. It's a really fun thing to use. And I will just say, there's not a lot of other like Airtable strategists that specifically work with the online coaching industry. So you can Google templates from Airtable, but I would really recommend learning from me, signing up for our free workshop, which is how to use Airtable to manage your clients, whether you have one or 1,000 coaching clients. I go even deeper into how to, like, what all of this stuff looks like, the back end of some really cool automation. So be sure to sign up for that masterclass too, just to get a better overview. And of course, there's way more content here on YouTube for you to peruse. I'm over on Instagram too. You can always send me a voice memo or a DM. And I'm just so excited that y'all are here. Thank you for learning with me, and we will see you in the next YouTube Live.